It's official. DY has taken over New York as the center of the universe. This morning, we're going to talk about how suburbs can up their ranking and become better suburbs than surrounding suburbs, what they have to do to get there. So this applies to anywhere. Stay tuned. Irish Fury.
Irish Fury, that's the name today.
What happened there?
Yeah, I was just telling Mark that last night, me and my boyfriend, who happens to be Irish, went to Manly Wharf Bar and they had trivia on, and I signed us up with the name The Irish Fury. And we ended up coming second, and we got a $50 bar tab.
You almost took out the title.
Yeah, I know someone, I think Corpse Bride, there was a team, took us out in the end. But it was a Halloween theme. Corpse Bride. It was a Halloween themed trivia. So, yeah, we got taken out at the end. But still, beginner's luck, good effort.
Good effort. So Halloween's this Saturday or Sunday?
It's Monday, but I think all the celebrations are over the weekend.
Okay,
so I love Halloween. I love it.
Sounds like fun. And the trivia sounds like fun. Get down to Manly.
Yes. I know. I think the question that got us over the edge was who was the celebrity who died in the opening scene of Scream? Who was the actress? If anyone knows it. I'm gonna leave it. I'll see if anyone knows it, and I'll reveal it at the end.
We'll leave people hanging on that one. We'll leave people hanging. So Nat Pat, we've witnessed strange things happen in DY. You're a bit younger than me, just a little bit, but you had some fond memories of DY. And wow, how it's changed, and we want to relate that back to people and where they live, and almost if you could have a secret. A laser beam on how to pick other suburbs for good growth or where to live when you're buying, and let's have a look at DY as an example of that and how that's changed. Your memories of DY are a bit different to some others. How are your memories of DY? And they've changed.
Yeah, so I've lived on the Northern Beaches forever, as a literal baby. I lived in DY. I can't remember it because I was a baby. Then I moved to Beacon Hill when I was like 1. So, big move. But DY has always been a big part of my life.
2 suburbs, massive.
Yeah, and now I'm in Fairlight. So there you go.
Another 2 suburbs, massive.
Yeah, but DY, the first thing that comes to my mind when I was thinking DY today was Video Easy. That's because when I was younger, I would go to Video Easy down at the old shops. We'd go to Mike Pauli's, where that big car park used to be. But I think, it's that main shopping strip. But I was just, even how it's changed over the past 20 years has been insane. And that's really reflected in property and how they're advertising properties now that are in DY.
Because where we're going with this also is DY's taken over rankings compared to other suburbs around us. So it's not just in our mind that it's improved as a suburb. You can actually see it in values, and you can see it in rental values, and a lot of stuff changed. I.e., the video shop, when you went to one aisle and mum and dad went to another aisle, you went to the kids aisle, they went there, that's all changed. The sneaker shop and the way you used to buy sports equipment, now you got your Rebel Sport, now you got your online, that's all changed. So there's been a polar change with a lot, like your fond memories of DY. What would a kid think of DY now?
Well, I think so. When I was a kid, DY to me is just a lot of concrete It's a lot of buildings. It's a lot of just establishments, like each individual. But now when you think of DY, it's so open, and they've made it so very family friendly. Like even the fact in the Meriton shopping precinct, they've got that huge open space, the little stage there, and they're really making it like they want to encourage people just to sit there and enjoy the space being in DY rather than being like, oh, let's quickly get dinner in a restaurant so we're not in by all the concrete. But now there's all these parks, like even the one on Howard Avenue. But it's so open, and there's been so many modern updates. That's one thing now to describe DY that you wouldn't use probably 15 years ago, the word modern.
Now, what's really interesting is these changes were greeted by a lot of opposition. So I before we go into more of the changes and how a suburb has bunny hopped other suburbs, I remember it's been a long road and a contentious road for the council, for the planners in the council, for developers, for the community. It's been heart-wrenching stuff because, some of the buildings that have gone up in DY were just resisted fanatically, and all those people disappeared.
Yeah. Well, even think about like recently DY Beachfront, how they've made that a one-way road. That got so much pushback.
Look at that. What does that say?
So that's not the answer to the question, Luke.
Oh, he's out.
That's for the trivia question. So it's
Luke's
who
out.
was the
Luke's
actress that died at the beginning of the Scream movie, the original? She's a very
So it
famous
wasn't
actress.
Jennifer.
No.
It wasn't Jennifer. So what were you saying about the one way?
Yeah, so DY Beachfront, what they proposed plans. So it used to be a two-way road, and
Yes.
they proposed that instead of doing it two-way, they were going to expand the shops to have more outdoor seating areas like they did in the main DY strip, and make it a one-way road instead with a cyclist lane, which is what they've done.
I would love to interview those shop owners 12 months later to say, what do you reckon?
Even in summer, and I think in like when they do like big events like running like fun runs, New Year's, they can use that whole road now rather than it just being you're blocking up a huge main road. It's just a one way. I personally think it's a good idea, but I know a lot of people don't. So
I'm a fan of it. But when we're talking about DY, what are the things what are the secret sprinkles that were put on the suburb to make it a better suburb? What were the things that we've spoken? So one way, identifying a beautiful beachfront street and saying, let's make it one way and create more outdoor seating. What were the other things that you can sprinkle on a suburb to make it a better suburb that DY learned? One of the things I learned was making hard decisions for the suburb, and it does. You will get opposition always, but it's actually funny because the majority won't say anything and the minority will. So it's quite a hard, I would imagine as a council, it's quite a hard thing to actually make a call on something, because no vote means vote. As in, when Meriton went to do 17 stories in the middle of DY, people were absolutely up in arms. But those 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever people that petitioned, there was another few 100,000 that said nothing. That's almost casting a vote in a way. But you almost ignore those people that haven't said anything, and you just look at the people that have said something, and it's quite concerning. But I definitely think, with what you said about the concrete jungle, council made a conscious decision to whack in 400 units into the town centre. And they made the conscious decision, they could see a developer could do 400 units and it was permissible. And they could see that the developer, by building those 400 units, could have done a shoebox. So literally, if you could imagine a shoebox with thousands of holes in it, that's what they could have whacked into the middle of Dee Why. And what they did is, instead of being a shoebox low and lots of holes in it being balconies and windows, they actually put two almost telegraph poles, and said, we're going to allow 17 stories. And then they furthermore said, now we want to see the balance of the land used for public open enjoyment and space. So instead of doing the shoebox, no public areas, units, they did the two telegraph poles, and they gave all the surrounding land like a really nice piazza, enjoyed the north aspect. So, it was, they were hard decisions, but they were good decisions.
Yeah, and I think it's like what you were saying, like about negotiating between the people who don't want it and want it, and finding that golden spot in between. And I think if you were right in saying that they just put a bunch of units where the Meriton is, would not have worked. Like, I think the way they've done it, they've made it really accessible for people who want to live in Dee Why, want to stay in those apartment buildings and those units, but also people who are just passing through or want to just use the suburb for its restaurants and cafes and just culture, really. Like, I think, yeah, I love Dee Why. And like, even looking at some of the renovations that have come in recent years. So I used to work at Dee Why RSL, so I'm biased there, but that's one of the big major improvements of the suburb I think of, along with the Beeline, which we were talking about, I think, the week before last.
Yeah, so $300 million invested into our transport system. So the government the locals identified they didn't want a train system, and that they'll never want a train system. But they did identify that there was serious bottlenecks to get around the northern beaches, particularly into the city. So they then vested in a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of community consultation, and they introduced a bus system where the bus only stopped 4 times to go to the city. And then they also micromanaged seconds along that route. Each time they saved a second or 2 or 3 at a particular stop or in a particular junction where buses got clogged up, that added up to a serious amount of time. So that has, I believe it's killed off suburbs that pushed back on it and said they didn't want it. And I believe suburbs who have got that Beeline bus stop have clearly benefited from it.
Definitely. Well, I know we were talking about this a few weeks ago, but look at Newport as an example. Like, they were originally meant to be on the Beeline, and it went everywhere. It went on all the buses, and then it got scrapped. They had to redo all the maps and everything on the Beeline. But yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm really, Dee Why is just a fun suburb to me. Like, even looking at all the restaurants and all the fun things, like Wings and Tins, you got so many nice restaurants, the sushi train along the main road, all these beautiful cafes, and then the beachfront, you've got all these new restaurants. You got your oldies but goodies like Chill Bar.
The boys. But people have, I love the saying, people vote with their money. And even though it's a very capitalist thing, I think those companies have actually done so well. People have turned up, they've voted with their money, they've got in there, they've done well, those things for the area, so that everyone's, and then so now these are all these businesses are starting to mesh. So they're creating what you just said, like that overall feeling where you go, I can go there, I can go there. I heard the RSL Club spent recently $180 million on their extension, which I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds right, and it's an enormous amount of money for in a backbone for a suburb as well. So I have definitely noticed as a real estate agent that rental values were lower when I was a pup, rental values of a unit in DY, as an example, were lower. They were lower than Collaroy. Collaroy was on the beach.
Yeah.
They were lower than Freshwater. Freshwater is a really cool suburb next to Manly. And they have clearly overtaken in rents, which is a polar change. So people, or the community, has voted again with their money, and they will rent a 2-bedroom unit for more in DY than they will Collaroy, Narrabeen, or Freshwater. And I think that's significant. And I think that's purely off the back of good planning.
Yeah, well, even like talking about those suburbs, like compare it to Freshwater, for example. Freshwater, it's arguable, but I think Freshwater is a better beach. And DY,
100%.
like and when you're looking at DY, you can't change the location of a suburb. So it's always been the center, as we were talking about before. It's always been the center of the beaches. Yeah. It's been an okay beach. It's about all the stuff in between that and what they can add to something, like without changing all the things that can't change, that has made it the suburb it is now.
It's a better one-stop shop today than it was 20 years ago, and that's because everything's now meshed. The transport system has meshed. The town planning has, and the people coming into the suburb has meshed. Great restaurants coming into the area. The DY beachfront going one way, putting more outdoor seating. All of that stuff is coming together. So on one thing, say beach, maybe Fresh is the winner. Okay, but then when you look at collectively meshing all the things together that have been added to a suburb, that's important. So the moral of the story today is, if you are buying in a suburb anywhere across Sydney or Australia, look at hospitals. We didn't talk about hospital.
I know.
The biggest, right? So a $4 billion hospital I think that was over a 5-year period. That injection, which is 2 suburbs away from us, like, look at suburbs that are clearly don't just look for one thing like a train line or an airport, but look for suburbs that have just got collectively all of these things going for them and coming into the area successfully.
Yeah, I think it's very important to look at all factors, not just one. And Luke, the scream answer. Da, 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 da. Well, I'm excited.
We almost signed out without it.
It's Drew Barrymore. So it's not a spoiler. She dies in the first.
You look like Drew Barrymore.
No, I don't.
Yes, if you were to look like someone, it'd be a Drew Barrymore.
Oh my God. Well,
if anyone agrees or disagrees, tell me now. But thank you very, very much. I love doing the show with you, and Nat Pat, that was an interesting pull apart of a suburb in Sydney.
Yes, that is featured behind me.
See you, legend.
See ya. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye.